This live stream may contain content that could be perceived as shocking or offensive, but it is presented solely for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. We strive to adhere to community guidelines, and any potentially sensitive material is shared with the intent of fostering understanding and learning.
Yo, what's going on, guys? Listen, it's your boy, Atypical Security Guard, but today I'm going to be going by my real name. That is Damian Bunting, and this is the first episode of The Black Reluctant Conservative. We're going to be talking about the Uvalde shooting, more importantly, the arrest of the chief of police of the Uvalde School District Police Department. This is kind of an interesting live stream that we're doing today because I'm cross-promoting this. It's being done here on the Security Guard channel, which is my larger channel, the channel that I've been working on for the past 4 years, developing a platform to help educate, motivate, train, and inform new and willing to learn security guards. But most of you guys know that I have my hand and my feet solely entrenched in the political game here in Portland, Oregon, being a contributor to Fox News, a contributor to Newsmax, and just giving a lot of my opinions on a national stage. One of the things that I don't want to do is have my political, rants, my political stance, the things that I'm involved in on that side of the equation, be on the Security Guard channel. I need an outlet for that is solely based around politics and has nothing to do with private security. So after today, after this video, after this live stream that you're watching right now, you will not see any of these videos on the Security Guard channel. But again, it is being cross-promoted on my new channel, which is called the Reluctant Conservative Podcast. So let's talk about that. What does it mean? The Reluctant Conservative, such an interesting name. I came up with that because I don't know if you guys are aware of this. Those of you who follow me on the Security Guard channel, those of you who have seen me on national news broadcasts, you're probably thinking to yourself like, man, that's a black conservative, which seems to be kind of the thing, right? That's the soup du jour of 2022, 2023, 2024. Everybody from the Hodge twins to Candace Owens to Kanye West to Jesse Lee Peterson. It's kind of a movement, right? Everybody is kind of in this moment where people are starting to wake up. They're starting to wake up to the political issues that are out there, people being able to have their own opinions, their own stance on things. It's okay to be different and kind of wake up and see what's going on and make your own decisions based on that. So that's something that has happened to me over the past 4 years. Before moving to Portland, I was a card-carrying supporter of the Democratic Party. I was a Bill Clinton Democrat, grew up in Arkansas with Bill Clinton as my governor, got to meet Bill Clinton, spend some time with him. 2016 was an absolute never Trumper. Could not under any circumstances understand why people would vote Republican or vote for the GOP. And I got to be honest with you, a lot of that came down to the way that I was raised, the way that I was indoctrinated, a lot of things that people had put into my mind in terms of how the black community is supposed to vote, how the black community should view politics. But as you get older and as you become more responsible for your own actions, responsible for your own, financial well-being, a lot of things start to kind of open up to you. A lot of things start to make sense. Now, for me, I don't associate myself with people like the Hodge twins or Candace Owens or Kanye West or who's this guy, Terrence K. Williams, right? Or Jesse Lee Peterson, right? There's such a caricature of what it means to be a black conservative. I know a lot of people, what's keeping them from making the decision to vote based on their own best interest, right? And a lot of times, look, I'm talking about this from my perspective, right? A lot of times what's in my best interest for me personally might align with the Democrat Party. Sometimes it might align with the GOP, but a lot of people in my community are afraid to openly say that they are voting Republican based on the years of negativity that surrounds that party, a lot of historical context. I mean, we can get into it, probably we will somewhere down the road, but here's the bottom line. Once I moved to Portland and I started to see the absolute result of a lot of far left policies, once I took the feelings out of the equation, right? For me, voting GOP works out best for me. And I don't feel that I need to be apologetic about that. I don't feel that I need to try and overly explain it. It's what works for me. We all get one vote. We all get one vote. We get to cast that vote, and you should feel comfortable, whether you're voting Democrat or Republican, you should feel comfortable voting for the people that you want to vote for. In my community, however, that is not the case. A lot of times Black people are shamed for voting Republican. You're called everything from an Uncle Tom to a sellout to being a Trump supporter. And for me, I just don't believe that that's the case. I am not one of those people who carry water for anybody. You know what I mean? And I've gotten to the point where at 46 years old, I'm finally comfortable just saying, look, I'm going to vote in my own best interest. I'm going to vote based on what's important to me, what I find important to me, what I think is best for my family. And right now, it could change. It could change somewhere down the road. But right now, this is what works for me, which is voting red. Now, after watching the debate on Thursday, I don't think anybody at this point, if our two candidates are Donald Trump and Joe Biden, can honestly sit there and give you a genuine view of how things went in that debate and say that they are comfortable voting for Joe Biden. If you're going to vote left at this point, you have to say that you're voting for the administration. But you can't in good conscience, you can't in good faith say that you're voting for Joe Biden himself, because he's clearly diminished. He's clearly compromised, right? But again, different conversation for a different stream. Today, we are going to be discussing Stephen A. Smith's response to the Uvalde police chief being arrested. And here's why this is important. You see a lot of celebrities that are used to come on to platforms like YouTube, TikTok, all of the daytime talk shows, all the podcasts, to give their opinions on things like gun control. Now, I know that the Uvalde situation is not gun control per se, but it kind of filters into that, because the issue of the young man who egregiously killed all of these, innocent children, that situation is used to push gun control. So by proxy, Stephen A. Smith giving his, scathing opinion of what happened, his scathing opinion of the police chief himself, it does play into this same issue of celebrities giving their opinions. It's very rare that you see anyone of a celebrity status, anyone of a famous entertainment level status, giving any sort of credence to, the pro-gun side, to the pro-Constitution side. They're all being utilized to push this anti-gun agenda. So I think it's important for us to talk about that and to kind of address some of the things that a lot of times these people on the far left, these people in the entertainment industry, that they're never addressing. You'll see videos of Jon Stewart. You'll see videos of Matthew McConaughey. You'll see videos of, people like Alec Baldwin, ironically enough, and now Stephen A. Smith, where they're giving their opinion. And each video is very, very similar. It'll come out with them being extremely impassioned, very emboldened, pulling on the heartstrings and tugging at the issues that relate to the children that were involved. But you never see these people giving an impassioned speech about the logical outcomes of what it is that they're not addressing, the things that could have been done to prevent that, the things that could have been put in place, and where a lot of that blame rightfully should go. So today we're going to play Stephen A's video. I'm going to debunk some of the things that he says in terms of where he's placing this blame and a lot of this anger. And then we're going to go into some of the areas where I think people need to be very, very careful. Be very, very careful. So over the last couple of years, the last 2 years of the time since this Uvalde shooting, there have been a lot of attempts to place blame on the gun manufacturers, to place blame on anybody and everybody that's associated with any aspect of making that firearm, shipping that firearm, selling that firearm. I think that Daniel Defense has been sued. I think there's an attempt to sue FedEx for shipping maybe a stock or a collapsible stock, to the shooter. Anybody and everybody in the peripheral. A lot of the blame is being placed on everybody except for the person that carried out this mass shooting. And I wanted to make this video and just say that those people who support that type of witch hunt have to be very careful. Because if you set a precedent that that's the way that things are going to be handled moving forward, this could be an effect that we have on everything, right? And I don't think that most people understand how dangerous that could be. Do you want your ability to drive a vehicle that can go a certain mile per hour? Do you want to be able to, purchase certain foods that you like to eat or wear certain clothing? I know it sounds crazy, but it's a Pandora's box. You start opening up the opportunity to sue manufacturers, to sue people that are shipping something, to sue people that are in any way associated with something that is used improperly and has a negative outcome. This is a slippery slope that could affect every aspect of our community and our life. So let's get to the story. So more than 2 years ago, after 19 children, more than 2 years after 19 children and 2 teachers were killed by a gunman at Robb Elementary School in Uvalde, Texas, charges have been filed against former school police chief Pete Arredondo. Okay, we're going to get to the video. Credit to Stephen A. Smith, utilized under fair use. Let's bring him onto the stage and see what he had to say today. Very impassioned speech. Stand by.
Move on to the continued fallout from the horrific school shooting that took place in Uvalde, Texas back in 2022. Former Uvalde Schools police chief Pete Arredondo was indicted over his role in the slow police response to the 2022 massacre at an elementary school that left 19 children and 2 teachers dead, the local sheriff said Thursday. Arredondo was indicted by a grand jury on 10 counts of felony child endangerment/abandonment and briefly booked into the county jail before he was released on bond. Uvalde Sheriff Ruben Alasko told the Associated Press in a text message Thursday night. District Attorney Christina Mitchell confirmed that former school officer Adrian Gonzalez also was indicted on multiple similar charges. Over 2 years ago, an 18-year-old gunman opened fire in a 4th grade classroom where he remained for more than 70 minutes before officers confronted and killed him. In their July 2022 report, Texas lawmakers faulted law enforcement at every level with failing to, quote, prioritize saving innocent lives over their own safety. That last sentence is all you need to see. Arredondo is who I'm targeting. The other officer, don't know much about him, have to watch the video again, but I remember Arredondo. What a coward. What a disgrace. And these officers, these 2 officers that were indicted, first of all, let's make something very clear. They should never work in law enforcement again. Number 2, they should never work at any place where children are involved, ever again. Number 3, I hope every night for them has been sleepless. Every single night. There are very few people in the world who don't deserve peace. You just heard about a couple of them.
Okay, let me stop right here. First off, it needs to be said that I don't think that anyone doesn't grieve for the children that were lost. I think that the people on the far left tend to look at pro-gun ownership members or pro-Second Amendment or constitutionalists as somehow being heartless to the loss of life, right? And it needs to be said that we are very sympathetic and empathetic to that situation. And it's an absolutely horribly atrocious thing that happened. The blame needs to be placed solely on the person that pulled the trigger. Now, in terms of Pete Arredondo and his lack of action, I think that goes without saying. But there's a lot of blame to be placed in this situation. A lot of things that need to be addressed. The same people who are placing blame at the feet of the police officers, not just Pete Arredondo, but all of the police officers who didn't act. You have to understand, you are also culpable. How many school shootings have we seen in the last 25 years? Guys, I'm 46 years old. At 46 years old, I remember Paducah, Kentucky. I remember Jonesboro, Arkansas. I remember Columbine. I remember the Florida shooting. I remember the Tennessee shooting. I can think of 10 to 15 shootings since I've been a grown adult. Every single one of those shootings, the same situation, a crazed gunman of whatever age walks into a school that has no more protection than a gun-free zone sign. Every single time that this happens, the calls for common sense gun control, the calls for removing law-abiding, safe operating, sane, sober, moral American citizens to somehow be lessened in their ability to purchase or own firearms is always the answer. The answer is never to put an armed guard or an armed officer in the school. In fact, in 2020, we had multiple conversations across the board in every state and every city about removing school resource officers from the premises. I have a real problem with people on the far left. I have a real problem with someone like Stephen A. Smith, Matthew McConaughey, Alec Baldwin. I saw a video of Stephen A. Smith the other day coming out of the ESPN studio. Stephen A. Smith is a reporter. Stephen A. Smith is a journalist. He came out of the ESPN studio flanked by security guards. The person who was talking to him, trying to get a video of him or a picture of him from his cell phone, was literally unable to get within 10 to 15 feet of Stephen A. Smith because he had multiple people bigger than myself. Guys, I'm 6'2", 275 pounds. Stephen A. Smith had bodyguards completely surrounding him. This person could not get close to Stephen A. Smith until Stephen A. Smith waved off his bodyguards and allowed this person to get up close to him. So I have a real problem with someone like that waving their finger and wagging their finger at people and constantly pushing for common sense gun reform, common sense gun control that has no effect on the safety of these kids. The blood is not just on the hands of Pete Arredondo. Although he is culpable for his lack of decision making, although he is responsible for his failure to act, although he is absolutely responsible for his failure in leadership, every single parent that has allowed their kids to go to school for the last 25 years and walk through those doors where the only thing there to prevent a tragedy from happening is a gun-free zone sign is also culpable. Our politicians, culpable. Moms demand action, culpable. All of the people who advocate and push for common sense things like security guards, law enforcement officers, teachers being able to carry a firearm safely, under training, under license, to be able to respond in the moment that something happens. All of the people who push back against that, you are all just as culpable. Let's continue.
I want y'all to go back to the footage that they showed from years ago when that shooting took place. You know there are little children in a room with a gunman. 19 children were killed, along with 2 adults. And those punk-ass officers did nothing. They were armed. 70 minutes passed before they entered the room and killed the gunman. Ladies and gentlemen, if you and I were on the street, black, white, Latino, Asian American, Native American, Jew, Catholic, Muslim, whatever, you know one of the things all of us have in common? Children. Our love for the innocent amongst us. You could see somebody bothering a child in the streets, and you will put your life on the line to make sure that that child is safe. But an officer or two, armed, who took an oath to protect and serve, stood by while 19 children were killed.
Let me remove this. Give me 1 second here. I want to look up the police officer oath. Stand by. Can't find anything specifically for you, Uvalde. Stand by 1 second. You know, in these situations, there is a condemnation for the police officers for not responding. You guys are aware that there is a Supreme Court decision that police officers have no duty to act. This is the misconception, and this is the fallacy. This is the fallacy that runs throughout the entirety of people's idea of personal self-protection. If you try to get people to understand the importance of being legally armed, of being trained to protect themselves, of taking the responsibility of being their own first responder, most people given that opportunity would absolutely say, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. I don't want that responsibility. Now, they might not say they don't want that responsibility. Most people will say, if given the question, would you carry a firearm if you could? Most people will say, I don't like firearms. And then you press them a little bit. Why? And most people will answer, I do not want to be responsible for hurting or killing someone. That's the answer. That's the top answer that you will get from 90% of people. Most women, most mothers, most wives, a lot of guys, unfortunately, in 2024. If given the question, why don't you carry a firearm under the Second Amendment for personal protection? Most people will say, I don't want to be responsible for hurting, harming, or killing someone. Completely ignoring the fact that the person that wishes to do you harm, and we can all agree that there are people out there that wish to do you harm. If we're talking about the issue of a mass shooting that happens at a school, that's exactly what we're talking about right now, right? We've seen this situation happen over and over and over again, enough for us to reasonably deduce that at some point in time, it's going to happen again. Most people have this unrealistic thought that the police are somehow the Avengers, and they're not. Under the best case scenario, if something happens, the police still have to get there. In order for them to engage a mass shooter, in order for them to stop a mass shooter, they still have to be alerted. They have to get there, and they have to engage. And on top of that, it is Supreme Court case law that police officers have no duty to save you. This is the reality. But since we don't operate in reality, we operate on feelings, right? We operate on what we wish, what we hope, what we think. And you'll hear that people will say, we shouldn't have to live in a society where we have to worry about whether or not we have a firearm to protect ourselves. I shouldn't have to go to a school where my safety is of concern. You will hear the vice president. I've seen a video of the vice president saying this, Kamala Harris. Kids shouldn't have to worry, right? You'll hear movie stars and politicians and famous people that will say, we shouldn't live in a time where, guys, let me be honest with you. That's not reality. You do live in that kind of society. You do live in that type of time. And it's been shown to you time and time and time again. What you wish, what you want, what you hope for, what you think society should be, that's not the reality. And since that's not the reality, why do we keep operating from an unrealistic standpoint? Wishing and hoping and praying and legislating that someone doesn't come through that door with bad intentions, it hasn't helped. It hasn't helped and it hasn't worked. So I understand the frustration with the inaction of someone like the Uvalde police chief, but you have to understand that it's already been established they are not responsible for our safety. They're a response unit. They respond to problems. They respond to crime. They are never there 90% of the time to stop something from happening. That's our responsibility as parents, as educators, as leaders, as men. That's our responsibility. And we continually push that responsibility off on someone else. And then when they actually have the opportunity to show up and do something and they don't, now we're putting all the blame on them. We are all responsible. We are all responsible for this. Every single person that votes against everybody's legal right to protect themselves. Every single person that votes against putting an officer on that site, a security guard in that school, you are culpable too. Should this chief be held responsible? Sure, go ahead. I'm going to tell you something though. It's not going to stick. You know why? It's been done before. Anybody remember Parkland? Anybody remember the Parkland shooting in Florida? Same situation. Officer on site did not respond. And they hit him with the exact same charges. Took his pension, fired the guy, and on appeal, everything was overturned because the case law already stands. Right now, we're in a situation where everybody on the left and on the right, they're so focused on the headline. The headline makes everybody happy. Hey, look, we got books taken out of schools. 3 weeks later, it gets overturned. But you got the headline. You got to trigger the libs, right? Hey, look, we got the police chief arrested, but he's going to ultimately get off. But you got the headline, right? We're focusing on the headline and we're not focusing on actually doing something that stops the issue from happening. Let's bring Stephen A. back in.
I hope they never sleep. The chances of them being convicted of the charges leveled against them by the district attorney are slim to none, according to the reports. I hope those reports are wrong. I hope they are incarcerated, especially Arredondo. What a shameful, shameful thing to happen. Children were being killed and you stood by with your punk ass and did absolutely positively nothing while children were in harm's way. We know strangers who've died that put their lives on the line for children they didn't even know, who were just regular citizens.
So if it's important and it's important enough to bring up that regular citizens are willing to die for children, why are we not allowing regular citizens to put themselves in a position to help save children? If this is the stance, and you hear this time and time and time again, it's for the children, it's for the safety of the children, it's about the children, then why aren't we protecting the children? Look, at some point in time, you have to be honest. Somebody's lying. Somebody's lying here. Because if it's about the safety of the children, why haven't you done something different? Going after Skeeter's AR-15 in Arkansas is not saving a high school in California. So if it's about the children, why aren't you doing something different? Clearly, the gun-free zone sign is not working. Clearly, putting metal detectors up is not working. I saw a thing here in Portland where a school system was so proud of themselves. They had an entire news story where they're like, hey, look, we put up a metal detector system that can detect a firearm. And they were talking about students walking through this metal detector and how it can detect if they have a firearm. Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. Because I've never seen someone in any of the videos, and I've watched a lot of them, where the school shooters entered the building and they go through a metal detector and they stop. I don't think they care. The person that's coming in to do nefarious things, the person that's coming in there to harm, hurt, and kill people, they don't care that the metal detector dings when they walk through it. What does that solve? It makes people feel better. It makes you feel like you're doing something, but people are spending all this time, all this effort, and all this money to do anything and everything except address the issue. What is the only thing that is going to stop an active shooter when they get on campus? Have somebody there to stop them. At the least, have somebody there to engage them. Short of that, anything that you put in there doesn't help. It doesn't. I barely graduated high school, and I can come to that conclusion. People far smarter than me, people with more education than I have, people who are far more experienced and intellectual than I am, they still have not come to that conclusion. Why? But it's about the children, right?
You took an oath to protect and serve. You violated your oath. And you left 19 children to be slaughtered. I'm not going to go as far as saying there's a special hell for people like that, because I understand there's levels to this, rapists, murderers, and stuff like that. But I harbor no sympathy for this man. I hope he's convicted. I hope they're both convicted. Anybody, any law enforcement official armed, having the ability to protect themselves, bulletproof vest, their own firearm, etc., and you refuse to go in for 70 minutes while 19 children are in the process of being murdered? Coward is too nice of a word to describe you.
So that's Stephen A. Smith's take. Listen, I give no quarter to any of those cops. I give no quarter to that police chief. I give no quarter to anybody who did not rush that door. My point in making this video, my point in having this conversation, addressing this issue, is that we can't continue to act as though it's someone else's responsibility to save us. Whether that's a mass shooting, whether that's your own home protection, whether that's your own personal safety, it's nobody else's responsibility. We are living in an illusion. And that illusion is there for a lot of different reasons. But the reality is that no one is coming to save you. It's your responsibility. And since the children are not old enough, responsible enough, or in a position to do it for themselves, we have to allow for there to be someone willing to do that. One of the great things that I love about Texas is that Texas has passed a bill or a law where it's a mandate that every school have an armed presence. I saw a video the other day where, they're about 25%, 15% short of the mandated number of officers that they're supposed to have in order to make sure that all their schools are staffed with armed security, armed officers. You know what they're doing in that situation? They're sending teachers who want to be armed, who are willing to protect, through the Marshal Service to get a special license to carry a firearm on campus. That's addressing the issue. You get style points for going on your podcast and giving a very impassioned speech, pointing out all the things that are wrong with that police chief. He is a scumbag, and he's a very, very easy target. But he's not the only person responsible for what continues to happen in every one of these schools and every other location. It's not just schools, guys. It's hospitals. It's strip malls. It's universities. It's everywhere. Everywhere where people are pushing an agenda that has zero to do with the protection of the people that are there. And you can get up and you can make your most impassioned speech. You can cry. You can pound your hand on the table like Matthew McConaughey. You can get emotional. It's not going to protect the next set of kids who are going to suffer the same fate. It's not going to stop the next deranged psychopath that wants to do harm. The only thing that is going to stop that is someone that is there to stand in that gap. And it can't be the police because they have to get there first. So until the same people who are pointing fingers and giving condemnation are willing to also accept that anything short of having people armed there to respond is the answer, then everybody is just as culpable as that police chief from Uvalde. And I stand on that. I want to know what you guys think. I want to hear your opinions. When this goes up on the pages, I want you to comment. If you're here from the Security Guard channel, if you want to hear more political commentary, if you want to hear more conversations about things and topics like this, please like and subscribe to the conservative. What is it? The Reluctant Conservative. Yeah, you'll be able to see that. You'll see my beautiful picture there. All right. And moving forward, we'll make sure to keep all the political stuff on that channel. All right, guys, I appreciate you being here as always. And for those of you who are new, I always sign off with the same thing. You guys be careful, watch your back, and as always, be great. All right, be great.
But I got money in the bank, gold in the safe, throw it in the clip, I got more on my waist, do the whole shit, I can let it go to waste, hold up, but I got money in the bank, gold in the safe, throw it in the clip, I got more on my waist, do the whole shit, I can let it go to waste, hold up, but I got money in the bank, gun on my waist, throw it on the clip, I got one in the fist, rob a nigga quick, how I get it out the field, when I ride the voice, shit just do this, nigga feel.